tour of the day. Breakfast at which we. It's beautiful. It's worth seeing. This is full instead of the misty dawn. This is one of our favorite places to see. We stay here almost Gyeongju. It's right at the edge of the historic old city, but it's just outside of it, so it's peaceful and quiet, and it's still kind of central to so many amazing things to see. Over to Orong as well, or not?
Where's Orong?
That's the tomb complex over there. Next time. We'll do it next time. Nah, we'll do it next time.
That would be a very long stream.
Yeah, that's true. We'll hit the 5-tomb complex next on our next Gyeongju visit. Have to remember we need to do that. So we're just checking out of our bed and breakfast, and we could have decided to leave our satchels here if we wanted. They're very friendly here. They know us, and they have a special room that locks that's actually just for left luggage. It's one of the great things about Korea. Left luggage is kind of an assumed situation. So here we are. It's a nice overcast day, but it's very unseasonably warm for this time of year, I have to say. Temperatures they're about 15 to 17 degrees for those of you who track temperatures in centigrade, and for Americans who are still back in the 18th century, apparently. It's going to be about 70 degrees today.
Susan says good evening.
Good evening, Susan. Thank you for once again joining us.
You can actually see the bridge in the distance this time.
This time we can see the distance, full stop. This morning when we did our walk, it was quite misty, which was lovely in general, but perhaps not the best for the viewing of the sights. The roosters, though, are still going, so there's that. So for those of you who are joining in, please do hit that thumbs up. And also, if you have any questions, pop them in the live chat, or if you're watching this as a recording, in the comments. I'm happy to answer them. So if you have any questions about traveling in Korea in general, Korean culture, Korean food, lay it on me. I'm happy to answer.
Traveling in Korea in specific. Doesn't have to be a general question.
So we have plotted our route for the day. We're going to actually be crossing the amazing filial, non-filial piety bridge. Oh, hold on, it's quite a loud area here. Here we have rice paddies in various states of harvest. And it's funny because, rice is a grass, and even though it's been cut, it's coming back, baby.
Yeah.
And who knows, if the winter's warm enough, they might have winter rice. How's that for a strange world?
It's extra valuable rice. Somebody wrote a lot. Don't have my glasses on. Oh, just say thank you to Hunter.
Oh, thank you, Hunter. I don't know what I'm thinking because I can't see the screen, but...
Doing and spreading positivity on small streams. Hope you make it big on YouTube.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Over here in the distance are, of course, mountains are everywhere here in Korea, but that tallest mountain was the first mountain we hiked in Korea, actually 10 years ago. And we went all the way to the top, and there is an 8th century Buddhist shrine up there that it's basically a hermitage, and it is still occupied by a hermit, by a Buddhist hermit. And it's quite mystical. There's a giant carving of Buddha in the side of the rock face up there. And it has withstood the test of weathering because I think it's granite, which is, of course, weather resistant. Yeah, we can tell it's Monday because cars are actually moving. On the weekend, the traffic here is pretty egregious. Gyeongju really needs to figure out what it wants to be when it grows up in terms of tourist cities. I think they're going to have to come to the conclusion that they need to just block off the historic central area as a pedestrian zone and force people to park in the exterior parking lots that are here and gasp, hear me out, dear viewer, actually walk through the beautiful sights instead of driving through them. Wait,
And a heart from Game of Earth.
Oh, thank you for the heart, Game of Earth. Appreciate it.
And we're up to 6 people on the stream, right?
So yeah, for those just joining, remember, I engage happily in the chat.
As much as I can do.
Yeah. So for those who don't know about Gyeongju, that's its modern name. Its historic name from the first millennium, it actually had a couple of different names. Sorabol or Kumsong. Kumsong means Citadel of Gold, literally. And that was the name that by which the city was known both locally and throughout many parts of Asia. The city, the legendary City of Gold, was actually here in Korea because the Shilla dynasty was absolutely obsessed with the material. And they, all these hill graves around here, which we're going to be visiting towards the end of our tour, are filled with gold regalia, gold belts, gold shoes, gold crowns, gold tiara, additions to the crowns. You'll get to see all of that when we go into the tomb that we're going to be entering at the end of the tour, the Heavenly Horse Tomb. The museum here, which we're not going to hit on this particular walking route, is filled with stunning pieces of goldsmith's craft. And not just that, but masterful pottery in all sorts of shapes and types and uses, some of which are somewhat arcane and unclear to archaeologists, which is why certain exhibits have fun names like duck-shaped vessel, because they don't know what the purpose of the duck-shaped vessel actually was. My suspicion it was probably an oil lamp, but Korean archaeologists apparently don't actually do living history, so I don't think they have as visceral a sense of the usefulness of certain objects.
You can see the sunflowers better now.
Yeah, so Korea loves flowers. They love planting flower plantations for people to enjoy in public spaces because the average person definitely does not have a yard or a garden of their own. And so instead, Korea has all these freely accessible public gardens where people can enjoy the beauty of the beauty of the natural world in a sort of artificial way, I guess. So up ahead, that is, in my opinion, the most beautiful bridge in the world, the bridge of filial, non-filial piety. And sorry, Susan, you're gonna have to hear the story again. This bridge has a fun story to it. Now, how true it is of course a question for history, in fact. But the legend goes that the old king died and his son, the crown prince, ascended to the throne. Well, the crown prince's mother, the dowager queen, decided that she was going to take a lover. Well, I'm not certain if she decided, it happened. But the lover lived on the right side of the stream, this side, in an estate. And she, of course, lived on the left side where the palace is. The palace was actually up there in those trees behind the bridge. We're going to be walking there too. So, she actually had to take a boat across the creek every time she wanted to go and visit her lover. So her son, in a sign of his deep affection to his lady mother, built this bridge so that she could easily cross to visit her paramour at will. And of course, perhaps with less obviousness than specifically getting a boat and crossing in it. Now, that's filial piety because he's showing his mother due reverence and duty, but it's non-piety because his deceased father, of course, he was being unfaithful towards, impious towards, because he was facilitating his lady mother's lack of widowhood chastity, which of course is a big no-no in Korean society. Once you're a widow, you should just stay that way and enjoy your dull, sad, loveless life. So this bridge is based on archaeological finds excavated from this rather shallow-looking creek, and also imagery, iconography of bridges from this era that are found, for example, on tomb paintings, tomb wall paintings, cave paintings, pottery, that sort of thing. There's almost, as far as I know, no, say, canvas paintings that have survived from this era.
They're all burned.
Yeah, burned up, but there are tomb walls, there's murals, there's sculpture, there's things in concrete, and pottery that have survived. So this was built using as faithful method as they could in terms of technique. You know, the rocks are hand hewn, the wooden beams are hand carved. Of course, everything is hand painted. It took them about 5 years to build this.
Wow, the stage is gone.
Oh, wow, the stage is gone. Well, I guess that was a thing on the weekend. For those who were here on the Dawn Walk, there was a stage here with seats and tents, but it's gone.
Susan hopes we have some time to do a live walk through the Gyeongju Museum.
Oh, yeah, that would be, yeah, we will try to do that on another visit. Gyeongju is only a 15-minute train ride, high-speed rail line from where we live.
17.
Currently, sorry, 17. So we come here quite often.
Actually, you can see the museum right
Yeah, that giant building over there with the white outlined roof, the gables, that's the Gyeongju National Museum. Okay, so here is the non-city side. Now, if you look at this column here with this lion, you'll see that there's a darker part of this column. So this is the part they found in the river. This is an original 7th century piece of masonry. And so that's how they were able to gauge the shape of the column. Now, whether it should be this tall or not, you know, that's kind of a matter of subjectivity.
So it's actually 90.
Right, who knows? But this looks good anyway. Yeah, I mean, we should. Oh, well, or not. What do you think? You sure? Oh, no, your knee. Maybe not. Maybe next time. Okay, well, what's nice about this bridge is you can actually go up into the entry gatehouses through the scary, steep stairs.
Wish me luck.
Wish me luck as I scale this in a long skirt. Although men would have worn long skirts in this era too, so they would have had the same challenges. Oh, they still have them closed. These windows all open and have been opened. But here you can see a digital reconstruction of some of the sort of Shila culture processions into the mountains for Buddhist religious rites. You see the construction of the bridge. The good luck butterfly, of course, and the good luck peony. Gyeongju is the name of the bridge, apparently, which literally means crescent moon bridge, because there's a fortress right there called the Crescent Fortress. Yeah. So up, you know, as I said, these windows all open. It's not normally so funerary up here, but you can see the joisting, the very traditional style. No, I don't think so, handsome. Let's not. Anyway, you can see the traditional joisting of the ceiling. All of that's hand painted, and it has to be repainted about every 10 years, although maybe not on the inside. On the outside it does. And this style of painting has really not changed in basically over 1,000 years in Korean architecture, traditional Korean architecture. The palaces have still, the Joseon palaces have exactly this style of painting on them. And it springs from the, Buddhist days, actually. Now we go down the scary stairs. Do you have a hand? Okay. I really don't want my cameraman to go tumbling down. Mind your head, which in American English means watch your head. Yeah, the stairs are pretty steep. So the official history says that this bridge was built so that they could, as you saw in the video, have carry out religious processions for Buddhist practices and rites at all of the numerous Buddhist shrines and temples on this side of the creek. I think the idea of it being built for the Queen Mother so she could visit her lover, much more fun. So here we go across, and you can see, I mentioned earlier that much of Gyeongju is currently under excavation. And here you can see an excavation underway, actually. That berm is part of the defensive works that surrounded the main palace grounds, which were in this crescent, in this plateau crescent. And they're in the process of going down layer by layer to see what they can find. And then when they're done, they'll put it back. But Gyeongju is really a treasure hunter's dream world. Unfortunately, many of the graves, the smaller graves, the easy to get into ones, have been plundered over the centuries. And hell, they may have been plundered as soon as they were built, the way often happened in Egypt. No one really knows because the records aren't clear at all. Oh, yeah. So here, for those who don't know, when you visit Korea and you go to these historic places, you can rent historic costumes, and I use the word costume intentionally because these are generally not historically accurate recreations of garments. They are what I call costume hanbok. They're sort of in the dark, they kind of sort of fit the silhouette, but none of the details are correct. Anyway, it's a fun way to experience these historic sites. Here in Gyeongju is the only place where you can actually rent Sheila-style garments, which is what those young ladies were wearing, rather than the Joseon hanbok, which is what most people associate with hanbok. And here we have another set of columns, and the column to the right, much more of it was preserved. You can see from the dark line upward, including the lion, this actually was preserved in the riverbed. So yeah, this is 1,400 years old, almost. Not doing too bad, I say.
1,300.
So I said almost. Don't get pedantic with me, sir. Okay, so onward now, we are going to be going through what is known as the Mystic Forest. It is one of the few old growth stands of trees left in Korea. Not much survived the Korean War. The peninsula was burnt down pretty badly everywhere.
Bombed down.
Yeah, burnt down, bombed down, shot down. It was cut for supplies. There wasn't much left by 1953. So this is one of the few stands of really old growth. And by old growth, I mean 1,000 years old or more. Really old.
The bug.
And you can take the bug truck tour. It doesn't go very far. It's not really worth it at all. I think
It's fun for kids.
It's fun for kids, but it doesn't show you very much. So the Mystic Forest is called that because, of course, it has some foundational mythology associated with it. The Sheila dynasty, which was the powerhouse of Korea in the first millennium, in essence. They're the ones who won the Game of Thrones in the first millennium and then lost it just about the turn of the next millennium. They, of course, have their own foundational myths, including, kings and queens being born of dragon's eggs that just happen to be in a well laid by a horse, because apparently horses can lay eggs. Just go with me on this, don't ask questions. And one of the early kings of Sheila was supposedly born in this forest in a golden egg that was found in a tree. That was supposedly laid by a horse, because horses can do that. Just trust me, it used to be possible. At nighttime, I swear, I promise I will give you all the nighttime tour at some point. At nighttime, this forest of amazing old growth trees is illuminated in a very specifically calculated array of lights that creates this multicolored effect that certainly instills the sense of mysticism. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and there's music playing from very inconspicuously placed locations or speakers. So, yeah. There's just not much left like this in Korea. Now, new trees have since been planted in many places. Korea is certainly reforested.
A lot of these are newer. You have to look for the old ones.
Yeah, a lot of, well, you can tell which ones are the older ones and which ones are the newer ones. The older ones in particular look like they house evil spirits. They are indeed gnarled and twisted. Now, we started coming here 10 years ago, and so much has changed. There has been so much redevelopment, so much historical reconstruction of features that have come to light because of all the excavations. So one of those sets of features that we're about to see is the moat system that surrounded this fortress. And whether it was defensive or if it was functional, who knows?
Scary trees.
Yeah, see, you can see the twisted, scary trees over there. Those are the 1,000-plus-year-old trees. And that's a shrine. Yeah, that's a shrine there, and behind that wall, that there's a stela there. And shrines can be to ancestors, they can be to historical or legendary events. It could be as simple as King so-and-so visited here in 1321, and so the shrine was placed here, and thanks for his visit. Oh, that poor 1,000-year-old tree didn't make it. It's just a little bit left.
The branch.
We have the little branch that's managed to keep going. Unfortunately, it's been very warm here, so we haven't really had much in the way of foliage. As I said earlier, the leaves just have sort of given up and gone brown, and fallen off. So this massive field out here used to be covered in residences and exterior palace facilities. So the aristocrats had their estates here because this was one of the entrances to the palace.
So on the entrance to the palace.
Yes, this was the entrance to the palace. And I want you to imagine that there was a gatehouse here that looked very much like the gatehouses of the bridge. And these berms are man-made. I mean, there was already a plateau here, but they extended them to make them much more impressive. They used to be a lot less berm-like and a lot more wall-like. And there was, of course, a sort of Great Wall of China style wall going all the way around it. For those of you who haven't been to Korea, that's probably the closest equivalent. This is the part of the moat system that I mentioned that they excavated and have reconstructed faithfully based on their excavations. So it actually starts, the elevation starts higher at that end and goes lower this way and flows towards the river. And I read that the archaeologists suspect that this was all part of the city water system for the entire city of Kumsong. So it was a very sophisticated there was a very sophisticated infrastructure here in terms of water supply. Certainly more than 8th century European cities had for the most part. Thank you, Justinian Plague. So we're now going to enter the main grounds, the main palace. Now, palaces, most people don't realize that a palace is not just a place where royalty live. A palace is the administrative heart of a kingdom. And so it's very workaday. There are people who commuted here every day for work. This was literally their work commute. They entered through this gate to go to their office. Bureaucrats who were in charge of a wide array of offices and departments. The Korean system, even in this era, was very connected to China, to the Middle Kingdom, as it was called, specifically the Tang Dynasty. So the Tang Dynasty had this amazing bureaucracy, so did Kumsong. And the palace was set up to allow that bureaucracy to function smoothly. So this was not a place for the pleasure of the royal family. This was a place where they worked. And they worked hard, make no mistake about it. There's this sort of decadent idea about aristocrats and royalty and that they sit around lazily eating bonbons all day. That's a more recent development in being an aristocrat and a royal. That is certainly not borne out in the first century or first millennium.
Warrior kings.
Warrior kings, philosopher kings. In Joseon, the average age of a king was 45 years, and it's not because they were assassinated often, it's because they died of a heart attack from stress and overwork.
It's just a foreign idea to our way of leaders.
Yeah, it's up at 4 a.m., in bed at midnight every day, day after day. R&R not really a concept. So this whole area, it's now barren, obviously. After the Shilla dynasty was conquered in the 10th century by the Goryeo dynasty, the capital was moved, and basically the buildings that were in here got repurposed. And by which I mean the materials were dismantled and taken and used to build other things in other parts of the city. And in some cases, as time wore on, the Mongols came here in the 13th century and set it on fire. You're going to notice fire is a big part of Korea's history. Set it on fire, and then after that, the walls, basically, the stones in the walls were repurposed into other things. So even though if you look on the wall here, you can see remnants of the stones sort of scattered about. These are not accidental.
The least cut stones. Like, we won't steal those.
Yeah.
Those aren't the good stones.
So here is a fantastic view of the moat system.
I'm gonna go left or right. Mountains. You can see why they chose this nice flat area amongst everything.
Yeah, I haven't confirmed it, but I suspect this was carved out by glaciers retreating. Well, coming in and then retreating. There aren't many flat spaces in Korea. It's mostly 70% mountain, serious mountain.
Unusual for modern purposes.
At nighttime, this place feels haunted because there are no lights up here on the inside at night. Up here on the right, you can see the blue tarp in the slight distance, the middle distance, I suppose. This is another archaeological excavation, and it has been ongoing for 10 years now. Yeah. And they have basically at this point mapped out the ground print of the part of the palace that was in this corner. And you know, a lot of Europeans think of palaces as being, one big building. No, not in Asia. They were nearly always, well, with the exception of Japan, which is nearly always the exception to everything. Palace complexes were a series of buildings that were semi-interconnected by usually not enclosed corridors, or not entirely enclosed corridors. So you spent a good deal of your time outside going from palace building to palace building. As you get to see in the diorama complete reconstruction of the Pleasure Palace, because the next place we're heading is the place where the royalty and aristocrats of the Shilla dynasty did go to have a good time.
Yeah, really modern.
They are. Looks like they've it's new. I don't know where that is though, because that's got glass in the front.
Says the Palace System of East Asia and Shilla. Interesting.
I think it's an exhibit.
Yeah.
So it looks like there's an exhibit, Shilla Kungsong.
24th and 25th of October.
Oh, we missed it. Right. Well, it looks like maybe they have started actually coming up with plans perhaps to reconstruct the palaces, the Shilla era palaces, more fully. All this time and money has been invested in Joseon dynasty architecture. I think it's time the great Shilla Empire gets its due. Their values were better anyway, in general, especially for women. And excavations over there have revealed more of a very sophisticated sewage system, actually. So they really are discovering more and more about this amazing ancient capital. So up here on the left, we have a structure. You can sort of see this mound. It is not a tomb. This is actually an 18th century ice house. So the city, of course, wasn't entirely abandoned. There were still people living here even after the Mongols burnt it to the ground, just to a much lesser degree. So when the Joseon dynasty came to be, they built a city, a much, 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 much smaller city here. And apparently the mountains here were known for their ice. And the king wanted a place to store ice so that he could have bingsu when he wanted. And so this was the ice house.
That's funny. Originally it was 100 meters that way. And then they moved the wooden structure, or they rebuilt it as a wooden structure, as a stone structure. And then 4 years later, moved it to here.
Yeah, so here, yeah, I think the lights aren't on. Yeah, you can sort of see it a little bit.
You can definitely see it.
Oh, yeah. So this, it doesn't look very big, but it's massive. And there are drains in the back because, of course, it's sloped downwards, and the drains drain out into that moat system for the melt. But the temperature in here was pretty much thus that there wasn't much melt. And the ice, the snow would be hauled in from the mountains, actually, in barrels and then deposited here. Here, what looks like pumpkins or sandbags.
There's not a bit of pumpkin here.
And the archaeologists are having lunch over there. Yep.
First time we've been here when they're actually
Yeah, we're usually here at night, interestingly. Or on the weekends when they're not working.
They still have the platform closed.
Yeah, that's annoying. I wanted to, because if we go up on that platform, you can actually see the outline of the palace as they've gotten it thus far. So now we are heading towards Tonggung, which means East Palace. And this is the only part of the Sheila Palace complex system that they've rebuilt to any degree. I think they did it probably back during wouldn't surprise me if it was during the Seoul Olympics or for the Seoul Olympics that they did it. So here, Wolsong Crescent Fortress or the Crescent Citadel, this was the working place for the royalty, working and sleeping, but the pleasure spot was over here, a purpose-built pleasure palace called the East Palace, also known these days as Woljong or as Anapji. Wolji or Anapji. One means duck pond, and you'll understand why when you see it. More of the moat system that's been reconstructed. This part was reconstructed a very long time ago. And then
I'm going to pay attention to where I'm going.
At nighttime, this whole street is street food of, sort of typical Korean street food, tornado potatoes, egg breads, meat on a stick, tok, the rice dumplings chewy rice dumplings in a spicy red sauce, fried things of unidentifiable nature.
Silkworm grubs.
Silkworm grubs, true.
Now for the ever exciting waiting for a streetlight in Korea.
This can be a process. But you can already see past the veil of cars, some people meandering in the distance. That is the palace complex. Now at nighttime is when this place is packed, because it's when it really is its most aesthetically pleasing with the illumination and the music playing. But also that means at nighttime it's bumper to bumper humanity. My recommendation, if you come to Korea, and you can plan it, don't come to Gyeongju on the weekend, just don't. Come in the middle of the week. You will thank me for that suggestion. Unfortunately, this light does not have a signal. Yeah, we have no button. We cannot affect its change at all.
Gives my knee a break.
Yeah. Questions while we wait? Questions while we wait, anyone?
Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, Gyeongju is one of these places that attracts a large number of Korean tourists and a lesser number of Western tourists, because most Western tourists never make it past Seoul. And if they make it past Seoul, then they're in Busan. So in terms of Westerners traveling to Korea, Gyeongju is still a hidden secret. But not for Koreans, they all know Gyeongju.
Korean friends are like, yes, we've been to Gyeongju, we went there for school.
Yeah. I remember back when there was foliage here, beautiful leaves, stunning colors. Those days are done.
This is where the dice was found. Could you imagine the king rolling, write your name with your butt?
So I'm not certain how well you can all hear me. There's a lot of traffic right here. This is what I say when I say I really hope Gyeongju reconsiders its car situation. This is part of this is where I also hope they reconsider the car situation. Korea has reached this level of affluence where everyone can afford a car and everyone wants to use their car, and whether they need to or not, and so that's a problem. Tickets.
전지 못 들어가게 알겠습니다. 이거 한 대. 내역서 나오죠. 감사합니다. 네, 감사합니다.
안녕하세요. 두 분.
감사합니다.
네. Okay. 3,000 won per person to get in, per grown up. Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, welcome to Tonggung. These elevated beds here are places where buildings were. So I want you to fill in with your imagination these spaces with architecture like that. And we're going to see a diorama.
So there'll be a test later.
There'll be a test later to see how accurate your imagination is.
Okay, that'll be way too much.
Oh, look, persimmon trees, or yes,
Quince?
Quince. Maybe these are quince. I think these are quince trees. Yeah, those are
orange
ugly.
enough to be
Those are ugly fruits, so that's got to be quince. For those of you who follow my medieval living history stuff, this pavilion on the right is actually open, and it's got a nice big wooden floor. And we held a medieval living history event here a year and a half ago, and came here and danced on Sunday. It
We
was.
even got some civilians in.
We even recruited some random spectators to join in. It was a lot of fun. So they have, as you may or may not be able to tell, done extensive excavations of this site and found thousands of objects in the pond and just sort of in other places. So the pond has been reconstructed. It wasn't here anymore when they started excavating, but based on records, written records, and also what they found when they started digging, they believe this was the shape of the pond. Now, this is by Asian aesthetics, highly cultivated, highly artificial, even though by our Western gardening standards, it's not, because the Asian aesthetic for gardens is that they should mimic nature. And natural lines should be captured rather than forced into unnatural ones. So they found, one of the reasons they're confident that this was a pleasure pond is they actually found an 8th century boat, wooden boat, preserved in the mud, in the anaerobic mud, and that's in the museum, actually. You can go see it. And it's this long, flat boat. What, question? Such polite ticket takers regarding moat channels, do they dredge them because, oh, one looked older like it needed it. Yeah, the moat channels over, yeah.
I think it did need it.
Yeah, it did need it for certain. Yeah, I think they will eventually get around to doing maintenance work. You know, it takes so long to accomplish the reconstruction work that by the time they get finished, the original pieces that have been reconstructed need some TLC. Korea is definitely investing money in that, though, and the Chaebol, the 10 families that actually run the country, are actually good about donating money for those sorts of causes. So, yep. So the ceiling in here is a really impressive piece of architecture. You know, there's no nails, by the way. This is all just held in place by gravity.
Which is good for earthquakes.
Which is, yeah, it's good, exactly. It's good for earthquakes. So there's actually natural give, but yet it's not going to fall down in a wind. And yes, this floor, great for dancing. And yes, ticket takers in Korea are extremely polite. Everyone is extremely polite. It's just part of society here. Now, we already talked about the water systems in other places, for example, around Wolseong. That same water system, well, the same idea, the same theory of having a sophisticated drainage and water system exists here as well.
Bug flew in my eye.
So here we have some of the original, and I mean original, as in the original stone even, part of the original water system that was here. And the lay of the land, they always take good advantage of the lay of the land. So you can't necessarily tell, but over there it's actually higher, and here it is lower. And so the water actually flows and feeds into the pond this way. And yeah, granite, it's all made of granite. That's kind of the natural stone. It's one of the reasons that 8th century Buddha statues in the mountains in a country with monsoons survive just fine. So they used to have a display in this pavilion of some of the objects that they excavated here, but they unfortunately moved it all to the museum. It's kind of sad because it was nice to have a little something here as well. But there is at least still the diorama, the reconstruction of the palace complex as they suspect it looked in that glass box. So we'll go take a look at that now. So,
down. Okay.
yeah, so here it is. Basically looking from the perspective of the way in which we entered. And you can see it was multi-story. There were sleeping quarters, there were feasting quarters. You know, that large pavilion was a central feasting and revel pavilion.
The one we danced in is this little one, right? There, right there on the corner.
Yeah. Yep, so the dancing one is right there. And like the pavilion is gorgeous and the pond is a work of natural beauty, even though man-made. No, it is. The pond is very photogenic. It's quite lovely. And I can definitely imagine, you know, floating around this pond on a boat with a musician strumming away, maybe someone reading some poetry and just nibbling on some grapes, which probably would have been the delicacy of choice.
Sorry, viewers, the controls got away.
Oh, was there a wobble?
Yeah, a wobble.
There are no birds. They're all gone.
There are no birds. They've gone south for the winter.
I don't think so. I think they must have done something to make them leave. Well, there used to be so many ducks and cranes and geese here.
I don't see a single
that,
one.
that little island right there. The last time I was here, I watched a crane literally kick a goose off into the water. Literally cow kick him off. It was, I wish I had as well.
Oh, and they used to keep deer on the islands too.
Oh yeah, that's true. They read from the records, they know that they used to keep scenic deer on the islands to, continue with the idea that this is just a miniature of nature. Deer are also one of the 10 symbols of prosperity and longevity. So it was a double whammy. At nighttime, these pavilions are all massively illuminated and they reflect in the water in the most stunning fashion. As above, as above, so below. Which is why there aren't many people here during the day. Basically, anyone who is here during the day has to be, because they're not going to be here at night. Nighttime, this is also a big date spot. Lots of people come here on their dates. Koreans, younger Koreans, i.e. people under 50, are basically dating Western style these days, which was not the case necessarily that long ago. They come and sit and hold hands and cuddle and take pictures, and the ladies laugh unnecessarily at jokes that probably aren't that funny.
Do you do that to me?
Never, of course not. In the evening, there's actually traditional or even historic Korean music floating in from these trees. It's quite nice. Right now, we have the delightful stylings of Weed Whacker. Now, when we were here the first time, you could go into this pavilion here on the right, but they have since roped it off. Possibly because people fell into the pond because they're not smart enough to not fall over the railing. Probably some of the idiot teenagers who come here on school trips and act like assholes.
Yeah.
Because teenagers apparently are all assholes. It's a cross-cultural thing. 1980. Oh yeah, so these were done in 1980, so even before then. These were probably some of the first reconstructed buildings in Korea, actually. Yeah.
Because 80 was before.
So this is one of my favorite lines of sight from here going there, because you have the gable of this roof or the eave of this roof going into there. Now, actually, I can take a moment to talk about the eaves of these roofs. So in my earlier live stream, I mentioned that Hanok, Korean architecture, the traditional style, actually is one of the most ecologically brilliant ones, possibly in the world, because the angle of this roof is precisely calculated so that in the summer, it prevents sunlight from entering the interior spaces, but in the winter, it allows the sunlight to enter for warmth. And that angle, of course, is appropriate and calculated so that it's good for all seasons, maximizing and minimizing sunlight entry as necessary. So it's not just, it looks like it's, beautiful, but it's actually very, very functional. So this mud field over here in the summer is lotus blossoms, that huge, all of it. It's just a massive field of lotus blossoms, and you can walk out into it. We can walk out into it now, but it's just mud fields. It's not exactly very scenic right now.
Go show them the
No, come on, keep walking. No, no one cares about the fish. Only you care about the fish. They're not pretty fish. There's not beautiful, oh, I guess there is. Okay, there is a pretty fish. Here, there's a pretty fish, look.
one that they could see was bright white, which is why they could see it.
Oh, so there are koi in this pond.
Oh, yeah, you can't see it.
Oh,
Underneath of the grass.
or whatever that is. Of course, these fish are indolent. They're expecting someone to give them bread, which they shouldn't be given. Oh, looks like we've had some issues with this part of the path. A little too natural, maybe.
I can hear the music.
Oh yeah, you can hear the music. Well, probably.
I'm going to show them lots of fish.
Oh, this is apparently a common feeding spot. Like I said, these koi are indolent and expecting someone to love them. And they're apparently not wrong. Yeah, they're definitely expecting someone to feed them.
How does that trip?
So this is a fantastic spot for viewing all of the reconstructed pavilions in one location. And at nighttime, this is what they call the prime photo spot. And of course, with the lights illuminating all of these structures, reflects into the water in an absolutely amazing way. There's too much wind today. Otherwise, you would even get a reflection during the day, but the water is too rough. But still, one can get a sense for what an enjoyable facility this must have been.
I must have taken it down. I thought they used to have a picture of what you could get a picture of.
I am hopeful they will finish reconstructing this palace 50 or 60 years after they started. The nice thing about reconstructed historical architecture is that you actually get a sense of what it was like in its original life rather than this dilapidated, worn out piece of architecture that has suffered 1,000 years of decay, aka European castles. Hello, dear viewers. Thank you for tuning in. If you have questions as we continue our walk through Gyeongju, just let me know in the live chat. And please do hit that thumbs up.
이리 가는 거냐?
생각하는데 여기에서 가까운데
차 타러 간다 이제.
너무 비싸가 못 산다 하더라고.
Some of the objects they excavated here, they found mirrors, hand mirrors, they found cosmetic kits, they found drinking vessels, they found plates, they found wick cutters. Yeah, they found wick cutters, all dating to the 6th through 9th century. And they found a dodecahedral dice. For those of you who play D&D, you'll know what I'm talking about. And it's a drinking game, it turns out, because on each facet, there are Chinese characters with instructions for what you should do if you roll that side up. And it's a drinking game, not in the sense of if you lose, you take a drink. It's a drinking game because you're supposed to drink while you play it. Some of the sides of dice say things like, howl at the moon while hopping on one foot, drink soju while hopping on one foot. Another one gave the instructions to write your name with your butt. which presumably means you have to come out here in the dirt, I guess, and use your posterior
Might have to use a brush.
to write your name. My cameraman cheekily said you might have to use a brush. We don't know. The instructions aren't that detailed. Anyway, they actually make replicas of this dice game and with instructions. Some of the instructions, the Chinese characters are so arcane and old that no one even knows what they actually mean. But most of them they've vaguely interpreted. So when you're in Gyeongju, I definitely recommend buying one of these dice, bringing them back and enlivening your next party. Historic or modern. It's among the many reasons that they're pretty certain this was a pleasure palace, because they didn't really find any of the trappings of a working palace facility, but all of the trappings of a place where people had a really good time.
Where else would you go?
Maybe too good. More excavations on the backside. There are reconstructions of what they think the city might have looked like, and it's pretty impressive to the point of breathtaking how Kumsong once looked over 1,000 years ago before the Mongols burnt it down. There was even a temple complex here, we're not going to hit that today, that was immense and had a 12-story wooden timber frame pagoda. Massive. It was a skyscraper. It was a wooden timber frame skyscraper. And it was famous throughout Asia, and the Mongols purposefully set it on fire, especially as a demoralizing act of power. So up here we have some of the original water system, pleasure water system. Actually, you can really see it during the day. So those twin dragons date to the 8th century, and water is still flowing through it. This beautiful, beautiful pond. So this entire carved out structure, that's all 7th century or 8th century. And at nighttime, they have the dragons illuminated in different colors, so it looks particularly mystical. But yeah, you can really see the dragons' heads during the day.
Oh, the archaeologists are over here right now, too.
They are working. So when Tang would send emissaries here to Kumsong, because Kumsong, the Shilla dynasty, the Shilla kingdom was a client of the Tang dynasty. It was a client kingdom. And so, the Tang dynasty would actually send emissaries here on a fairly regular basis to, keep an eye on everything. And this was where they would take them for banqueting and schmoozing, keep everything all nice and happy between them and the Tang dynasty. Oh, and actually, so if you look, you see that gray stripe on the pavilion there. That's original tiles that they excavated from the pond muck, and actually were in good enough shape that they were able to use them to tile that part of the roof, just so there's at least, some historic component to the reconstruction, which I really appreciate as a practitioner of living history.
I can no longer see the screen, so if there's questions...
Yeah, someone needs to get sunglasses. Tisk, tisk, tisk.
You see the screen.
Help me see the screen. So, from living life to the fullest, living la vida loca in the first millennium, we're going to go...
Sky.
we're going to move to living la vida no longer. We're heading towards one of the most well-trodden tomb parks here in Gyeongju, and going to go into a tomb, one of the Tamilai, the Heavenly Horse Tomb. So this tomb was excavated in the 1970s, and it was I think it was the first excavation since the Japanese had left, actually. I think it was the first Korean exit. Yeah. And they found amazing treasure and grave goods within. And after they were done excavating, they reconstructed it so that people could come inside and see what it's like to be a dead and buried aristocrat of the Shilla dynasty. So we're actually going to go into a tomb and see the grave goods in situ and see the reconstructions of the grave goods, faithfully executed using historical techniques. So from love, work, and pleasure, we go to death.
We get to see the observatory first.
Well, we'll pass some other things on our way, but we're heading to the end of the tour metaphorically and practically.
Netflix saying, "You just finished life. How did you like it?"
Yeah, that's right.
Or living, or whatever.
Yeah, you just finished living. Yeah. Actually, we're going to pass one of the artist's renderings of Kumsong as was, but I think it's outdated now that they've done a great deal more excavation work. Unfortunately, there's too much modern city here to reconstruct all of Kumsong as it was. There'd be a lot of very angry people if they eminent domained the space that would be required. But it would be great if they did anyway, because Kumsong was an amazingly beautiful place based on all imaginings. Look, ugly fruit. Ooh. Ooh. I've never seen this gate open.
Do you know how big the Etruscan tumuli were?
Oh, the Etruscan tumuli are small. Like, yeah, nothing like this. Like, person size. They're big enough. They're big enough to cover a sarcophagus, but they're not pure. Yeah, they're not monumental. They're not monumentally sized at all. But it's a great question. It's interesting how disparate cultures scattered across the globe all have a similar idea about building upwards towards the heavens when it comes to your final resting place. Also interesting how everyone's mythologies all seem to develop the idea of the gods residing in the heavens instead of on this plane. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, there's a Korean voice telling us not to cross, very firmly but politely.
Wait. There's another comment.
Oh.
Grazie.
Prego. Okay, we're crossing. Oh wow, there's no streetcars there, or there's no street food vendors here, so we can just
leave there.
No, I guess they're only here on the weekends. Probably doesn't make much sense otherwise. So to proceed to one of the several tomb complexes, we will be going along the base of Wolsong, the base of the Citadel's walls. And you'll be able to see the beautiful, moat. It's funny because moat system really makes it sound so unappealing, but this is beautiful. Screening for Shilla Palace. Oh, has that always been there?
This is the first time it's been open.
So here is one of the renderings of Kumsong.
There's the 12-story.
There's the 12-story pagoda that I hope they reconstruct someday.
See the city. And we get the little Anapshi pond right there.
Yep.
In the foreground, you can see the palace.
You can see this is an outdated rendering of the moat system. So they put them.
The Grand Avenue. I believe it was there.
Yep. And there are some of the tumuli we'll be visiting.
I want them to reconstruct that place.
Yeah, seriously. Let's go in and see what's going on with this palace thing. Twice every hour, running time 15 minutes. I think it's 15 minutes long. We'll come back for it. But if you come to Gyeongju, you should come here to the Sheila Palace viewing. Presumably it's some kind of very three-dimensional digital experience. Korea is really good about that, actually. Parasol time. Oh yeah, Korea is super efficient about public restrooms. They're everywhere, they're super clean, they're safe, and they often play beautiful classical music. So yeah.
That's a new sign for the moat system.
Oh yeah, they've actually got a sign up for the moat system. That's nice.
Shows you just how often they, because we were here, what, 6 months ago?
Yeah, there was no sign. No. Well, they're constantly discovering new things here because the excavations are ongoing. So our imagining, our understanding of Kumsong, of the Sheila dynasty, the Sheila kingdom, is evolving. You know, people imagine that history is written and therefore fixed. It's not. Because new sources are coming to light on a fairly constant basis to give us a new, more full understanding. And if you like hiking, Korea is the place to come, and Gyeongju in particular is covered in hiking trails. And they can be as rough as you like, as steep, as craggy. That mountain that's kind of dead ahead behind those trees that we mentioned at the beginning of this tour, that mountain, that path is straight up. There are parts where you're literally scrabbling hands and feet to go up. We learned that the hard way. Coming down was unpleasant. Going up was not bad. It was okay. Coming down, oof. You understand why people have walking sticks here. It's not because they can't walk. It's because they don't want to die on the way down. Over there is the mystical forest. A little bit further to our left, you can see the exterior walls of Wolsong. Yeah, it's really turning into a beautiful, unseasonable November day. Oh yeah. So here to the right, you can see they've really found some serious foundations here. That's new since the last time we were here, newly exposed.
And they may have been covered by tarps last time, I guess, but this seems to be a new site.
Yeah, that looks like it's newly excavated. It's still kind of muddy. It was always fascinating to me what gets forgotten over time. So all of these plantations in the summer, this last summer, they were filled with poppies, so it was beautiful red with occasional specks of albino poppies. Koreans love to come and pose in the flowers for their millions upon millions of selfies. This is on the weekends, as I said, a big time dating spot. I
kind of see the little heart back there.
Yeah. And you know, I'm not certain if it's an intentional suggestion, but there are bunnies here that illuminate at night. Bunnies, of course, in the West, at least, being a sign of fecundity. So I'm not certain if that's intentional or not. There's a crescent with the heavenly horses on it, the Chonma. You can tell it's heavenly because it has wisps of clouds around its legs. That's how you know it's heavenly. It flies because it has clouds, not because it has wings. Oh, they've got the fall time plantation, but those rose bushes are permanent. Rose bushes do really well in Korea, surprisingly. Oh, more sunflowers.
Sunflowers back there. Turns over there.
Yeah. More sunflower plantations. Korea is really excellent about flowers.
They can actually see it now.
See what?
Tower.
Oh, yes. So here, this tower that you can see coming up is one of the earliest observatories that at least is still extant. So it dates to the 6th century, and it has survived earthquakes, it has survived wars. It's doing pretty well for itself, and it was built to calculate the trajectory of the heavens.
It survives students climbing all over it.
It survived students climbing all over it, which they're no longer allowed to do, thankfully. But of course, astrology, as in the West, here in the East, used to be an absolutely crucial part of life and predicting what would happen. When would be an auspicious time to be married? When would be an auspicious time to get pregnant? And I'm not kidding about that. Royalty actually planned their conjugal visits based on when it would be the most auspicious to actually get pregnant. And so the astrologers needed a way to observe the heavens. And so this observatory was built. And there used to be a ladder, which is obviously no longer there because people would try to use it. And you would go up there and observe the night sky.
You can really see the mountains right now, too.
Yeah, the mountains are looking beautiful. So for those who weren't part of the dawn tour, you notice how beautifully manicured those mountains are, how nice, neat all of that lawn is. They don't have sheep, which I wish they did, to keep it that length. No, they actually will take 5 or 6 men and a lawnmower and attach ropes to the lawnmower and have the 5 or 6 men use those ropes to guide it around and around and around the mound, up and down. It is a feat worth watching. I don't think anyone has died yet. It's a little nail biting though to watch them doing it. So all of these sites come with usually some kind of video, some kind of digital experience to put the historic building in a context. And this is no exception here at Cheomseongdae. Cheomseongdae is the name of that observatory. You can come and rest your feet, charge your devices, and learn a little something. Also, those digital experiences always have outlets or even charging stations for your devices because Korea is a very advanced country. And they understand that tourists want to take pictures. And that even children here at the age of 5 and up have smartphones and take pictures. Lots and lots of pictures.
Kite in the tree right here.
Yes. So as I mentioned on our dawn walk, this field is where on the weekends there are tons of people flying kites, and there are a couple now. And unfortunately, those kites end up tangled in trees and no one retrieves them. Well, at least the owners don't retrieve them. I suppose once a week they must send people up to clean them out, otherwise the trees would just be kites. But there aren't many open flat spaces in Korea where one can actually fly kites because it's very mountainous and most flat spaces end up with buildings on them for a good reason, if they're not being used for agriculture.
Which is a testament to how important this is, that all this space is left open.
Exactly, and not even for people to enjoy directly.
I'm enjoying it directly.
No, you're enjoying
Eyes.
You're enjoying it indirectly. So we're now heading to the Cheonma-cheong Tomb Park. The Heavenly Horse Tomb Park. It's called that because of the heavenly horses that are found on the mud flaps that were part of the grave goods inside of this tomb into which we are going to go. But it is an absolutely beautiful space in which to spend time.
That was empty when we walked earlier.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. This is a Monday. This is how busy it is on a Monday. So I just want you to extrapolate to weekend. As I said earlier, if you're planning a trip to Korea, you must come to Gyeongju, but plan to come here in the middle of the week. Seoul is kind of always busy, no matter what, so being in Seoul on the weekend won't make a difference. Makes a difference in Gyeongju, big difference. Daejeon.
Mấy người nó nghiêng tới nghiêng lui sợ nó té.
Okay. On the weekends, they actually have Royal in the main season. I'm not certain if they're doing it in the autumn. Here in the historic part of Gyeongju, they actually do reenactments of Sheila royal processions, usually with Queen Sondok, of course. So they have Queen Sondok on a palanquin being borne up by her henchmen and surrounded by retainers and courtiers and musicians. And they actually walk, they process from Gyeocheonmal, the Hanok village, all the way to Cheomsongdae, which you saw. In fact, they may go to the Tonggung, I'm not certain.
We've never followed. So
We never followed it, so we don't know where it ends, but
far as I know,
it
they come here.
is definitely an added value for enjoying the historic spaces.
Gyeongju famous bread.
So Gyeongju pang, chalpori pang, is one of the traditional sweetbreads that they, and I don't mean sweetbread in the sense of offal, I mean dessert-like breads that is traditional here in the Gyeongju area. And the crust is made of barley, the outer part, the bread part is made of barley, and it's a very thin layer of barley. Sort of a barley egg bread, and then inside is usually sweet red bean paste, a lot of it. And that is a local specialty, and I definitely recommend you try it. They also have a sort of pancake-like, barley pancake-like version, which is 2 little silver dollar-sized barley flour pancakes, and between that is sandwiched a very thin layer of the red bean paste.
Because this goes by the...
Yeah, it goes by the photo spot, that's true. So basically this is sort of a big triangle in a vague shape, and all roads can lead back to where you start, or you can exit out what's called the Tomb Park back gate,
Ironically on the city side.
which is on the city side, so interesting. There are lots of little hillocks in here that I'm pretty certain are tombs as well, that maybe have been grave robbed and so are much smaller in size, but also were probably not nearly as significant.
It's crazy how you can't see them out through the tree in the video, really.
But I love Korean pine trees. They're just, they're so special. Each one completely unique with their spindly, winding individuality, sort of in contrast to Korean society, which is, of course, until recently had no focus on individuality whatsoever.
But no, these trees are going to be made into a mast.
The Korean maples that are perfectly green, despite it being November, not normal. If foliage season were to happen, this park is stunning because these Korean maples turn rainbow.
That area right there is amazing for cherry blossom.
Oh yeah, and then there's all those sad brown trees. Those are actually cherry trees. That, by the way, are starting to bud again. So, yeah, that's not normal.
Oh, there you can kind of see the altar stone for worship, ancestor worship at this mound.
Oh yeah. So.
Do you want to go show them?
Yeah. So, from some of the tombs, they actually know the identity of the king or queen buried inside. This is one of them. I think it's a general actually buried in here. And some of them have altar stones that are original because ancestor worship is, of course, a big part of Korean society going back thousands of years and even to this day for non-Christian families for the most part. And so there are certain times of year where one performs the ancestral rites. The anniversary of the person's death, and then Chuseok and Lunar New Year. Yeah, 20 million won fine for climbing up this tomb. So my suggestion is don't do it. This is King Michu, okay. This is King Michu's tomb, 13th ruler of the Shilla dynasty. And that creepy looking stone throne, well, that's because the idea was that the spirit of the individual would actually come and sit there and partake of the feast that would be laid out on the altar stone. Now, granted, all of those food items, no one actually thought that the spirit really ate them. They thought they ate the spirit of the foodstuffs. So the real foodstuffs would then be prepared and served in a feast afterwards for the living descendants. Now you see this hill, don't climb up it. It's a 20 million won fine, which at today's exchange rate is probably $15,000.
16 fine.
Yeah, so it's a no joke. They're really serious. Do not climb that mountain. Yeah, and 2 years in prison. Do not climb the hill graves. Just don't do it. It may be tempting, but do not do it. Oh gosh. I think that tree is budding. Do my eyes deceive me? No, that tree is budding. The tree is budding. Wow, okay. I got called a warm earther the other day. I'll take it. I believe, absolutely, that the planet is getting warmer. I believe that it's anthropogenic, and I can use my eyes to see the evidence.
And my experiences.
And my experiences. It's
10 years we've been.
definitely been getting hotter. Anyway, back to less controversial topics such as science and science deniers.
Please respect the sacred nature of the tomb. If you are on the tombs or on the grass, please return to the scenic trail immediately.
So nice.
Again, if you are on the tombs or on
I'm gonna get ahead.
please return to the scenic trail.
1분씩은 좀 걸어야 되거든.
So are there any questions?
새로 또 신상이 나올 거야. 어떤 남자가 여자고 하나.
Oh yeah, well, I didn't necessarily want to actually take a photo. So Korea, yeah, absolutely. Korea is known for selfies. In fact, I've read several essays about why women especially engage in selfie taking. Interesting topic if you ever look into it from a psychosocial perspective. Anyway, so which means that anywhere you go in Korea that's vaguely scenic, there will invariably be a sign that says photo spot in all the right places for the best photos, just so that you don't have to do the thinking work on your own. And we're about to pass, I think, the primary photo spot in Gyeongju any time of year, not just cherry blossom season. And it's because of the layering of the tumuli. And I will show it to you. We're not waiting in line to get a picture, dear viewers.
In cherry blossom season, there's a cherry tree right there, too.
Oh, yeah, so it becomes even more wonderful. But right now, the cherry tree looks sadly dead.
Very simple.
Here's a new gate they added to the park, which is not open, curiously. I wonder why.
Unusual. Oh, they don't have an attendant. They may not have enough attendance during the week.
Well, I suppose that's true. Basically, when they opened this place up to be a general public park and the paid part is only the Heavenly Horse Tomb, they added a couple of extra gates for accessibility. which I thought was nice.
I haven't shown them the pretty site yet. People circumventing the line.
Getting the cheap seats photo spot up here. Okay. Here, handsome, come here. Here is the photo spot.
들어가는 문 같은 거 있다.
That's the poor person's photo spot. This is the photo spot. So you can understand why people might want to wait in line to take their own picture. It's beautiful. I'm not worth my time to wait in line, but I love looking at it. It's really wonderful.
And that hill behind it is huge.
Yeah, so that's a double grave behind it. That's a double hill grave. And that is, when I said there are pyramid-sized hill graves here, I meant it.
Oh, you can talk about the covered one over here to the right.
Oh, right. So to our right, just on the other side of the wall, you see that white dome. That is not, in fact, Thunderdome. That is a roof over what was, at least until recently, an active tumulus excavation. And we watched that thing over the years basically disappear layer by layer as they unearthed each section very, very carefully. And they actually found a horse interred there with its armor. And the horse armor is stunning. They also found a man's armor in there. Bones were gone, but they found they found gold. But the armor is what to me was impressive, and it set it apart from other tombs where they haven't found complete sets of armor like that. So you actually got to go in and watch excavation of an actual active tomb site. It was very interesting in a slow paint drying sort of way. But if you came back frequently, then it was more exciting to see the changes.
We came back over the course of 10 years.
Yeah, we came back over the course of 10 years. So we were able to witness the changes dramatically instead of like paint drying. It's actually this tomb that we got to see being mowed, this giant one in front of us. Gave me a whole new respect for landscapers. Not that I ever had any disrespect for their hard labor, but this takes it to a new level.
For those of you on the morning tour, there's the Bell Pavilion right there.
Yeah, so in the morning tour, we visited that Bell Pavilion over there. And that is a replica, a very faithful replica of a 1,200-year-old bell that is still intact and in the Gyeongju National Museum. And that was rung for the last time in 2019. And they took a recording of it, so you can listen to 1,200-year-old, how a bell sounded 1,200 years ago, which is that really gives me goosebumps to think that I'm listening to the exact same sounds and tones that someone who lived 1,000 years ago once heard. For those who don't know, bells in Korea were crucial the way they were in Europe. Actually, they were used for all parts of the day, all important functions of life. Used to ring the curfew, used to end the curfew in the morning, used to ring ritual functions. Used to ring ritual functions, used to warn people of an invasion, say by Mongols. Not a random example.
No, if I had a nickel for every time.
Yeah, if we had a nickel for every time Mongols make an appearance in our travels throughout all of Europe and Asia.
We got 2 nickels.
We don't. In cherry blossom season, this park is also extremely beautiful because a lot of these trees are cherry trees. Cherry blossom season, for those who don't know, is March to April. It's been coming earlier and earlier. See warm earther theory, and I'm kind of wondering if we're going to have a November late/early cherry blossom season at this juncture. Oh, I wonder if we still have water lilies. That would be a sign, wouldn't it? So for those who don't know, not all water lilies are lotus blossoms. They're two different kinds of plants, actually. Lotus blossoms, lotus have those giant, giant leaves and super big blossoms that get a little messy, actually, whereas lily pads are much smaller and lily blossoms are sort of more contained, more neatly cut, shall we say. So this is the backside of the Heavenly Horse tomb. After they excavated it, which by the way is an extremely destructive process, they rebuilt it. You do have to pay to enter here. It is absolutely worth the 1,800 won or whatever it is, because, you know, it's a lot of money to maintain these kinds of facilities. It's a lot of money to actually pay someone, a skilled craftsman, to reconstruct these grave goods. So I think 1,800 won a person is perfectly reasonable.
Cheap at twice the price.
Yep, cheap at twice the price. I agree.
장소죠.
But in reality, almost all museums in Korea are free entry. Sorry, there seems to be a delay in people making comments and them appearing in the chat. So,
Have they found Queen Sondok's tomb?
yes. Oh, yeah. Queen Sondok's tomb is absolutely well documented and can be visited. You can't go in it, though.
미추와 가드를 알기는 가서 되는 거죠.
투명.
멋있어요.
감사합니다. 계세요. She said I looked good. Okay, in we go. Yeah, so Queen Sondok's tomb, yeah, we can visit it. It's not in the city, it's out in the mountains. I mean, it's not terribly far, but it's also not really on this tour. We would need another hour or 3 to get there. Okay, so we are now entering the Heavenly Horse tomb. Love this place. So this tomb is amazing on so many levels. It is a very sophisticated piece of engineering. So what they've done intentionally is presented you with a cross-section of the layer of the tomb so that you can appreciate that it's not just a mound of dirt at all. So we have, of course, a wooden chamber. So these are known as chamber tombs in archaeological circles. I know it's really sophisticated language. And we'll look in there in a moment, but let's focus on the structure for now. So you have the wooden chamber, and then you have the rocks, which provide the foundation. And then you can see there's that strip, the dark, narrow layer. That is clay. That is a clay layer that goes all the way around the entire stone mound. And that is specifically there to seal off the tomb so that water does not get in, because water, of course, is the universal solvent and the most destructive element in any archaeological site. I guess lava might be more destructive, but whatever. Then there is another layer of soil put on top of that, not clay, just regular soil, and that finishes the mound. So it's intentionally structured to last forever until people start digging at them, obviously. So here is the chamber as they found it when, this is what it looked like, basically. So you can see the grave goods there. Notice no bones. The soil conditions here, bones dissolve. Metal survives though. So you can see what I meant when I said this was the kingdom of gold, because, yeah, right. So this was the kingdom of gold. And those are jade crescents. Jade was indeed a precious stone, as it is now. So crescents, of course, could be a symbol of fertility. You know, their symbolism is kind of a little opaque. We don't have records talking about them So could be fertility, could be prosperity, could be because they liked the way it looked. You've got the girdle, and with all of these symbols on, sort of symbolic pieces on the girdle. There's a needle case, there's a fish. These were all sort of the symbolic roles of the crown or of an aristocrat. You'll notice there are just these metal bars everywhere. Those are ingots. And those are iron ingots. Iron, of course, was extremely hard to produce at this time. So just being buried with just plain iron ingots was, basically a sign of your wealth and power. Now, the chamber was completely collapsed when they excavated this tomb. And you can tell that because down there you can see metal staples in they don't look very much like staples anymore. Hold on a minute, I'm showing you the arrowheads, which is not what I want, metal staples, right? And those were the staples that originally held the beams in place. And when the beams rotted out, then all the staples ended up there. You'll also notice that why is this doing that? Okay. There are arrowheads there. Those are what those sort of rusty metal bits are. Those are arrowheads. So you have all of the trappings of a warrior, of a king. And over here, we have many other grave goods, including horse tack, including tiara additions to be attached to that crown to make it even more splendid. And there is the heavenly horse mud flap, one of them right there. You can see the horse sort of in the center of it. Now, one of the most amazing things about this particular grave is that little piece of blue glass right there. That glass was made in Byzantium in the 6th century, and it made its way all the way from Byzantium through the Silk Road connections all the way here to this tomb, and it was in perfect condition. It was not smashed, it was not broken. So that to me is just a testament to how interconnected the ancient world was. Right. So let's go and take a look at some of the replicas of the grave goods. Right. Be the end of our tour. That's how it looked in the grave, actually. And it's a birch. That is birch bark. Believe it or not, painted birch bark. Painted and quilted. And after 1,500 years of being in the ground, this is how it looked, which I think is pretty impressive. See the heavenly horse? You can tell again because there are clouds around its legs. This is the reconstruction of what it looked like when it went into the ground. And this is a mud flap for the saddle. And you can see on this statuette, which they found in one of the other graves, this is where the mud flap went. So this is where that literally went right on the backside of the stirrups, so that when the horse, moved about, locomoted, then the mud wouldn't splash up on the rider. For those of you who ride, you know that you will get muddy if it's muddy outside. This was a way to prevent that. This, however, is a practical mud flap. Sorry, that was probably a little fast. This is a beautiful mud flap. This one is, it's basically made in layers. So you've got the basketry layer, then you've got a layer of hemp, then you've got a layer of silk, and then the gold filigree over top of that. And I actually have an entire video, a short video, it's like a minute or a minute and a half on reconstructing it. Way too soon. Yeah, link in there. It's in the shorts. Should be in the Korea playlist, I think, right? So these are all pieces, these are reconstructions of gold stirrups, of a gold bit, saddle cantles. And, one thing I want you to imagine great thing is that all of these pieces can be found on this horse sculpture. Those little shimmering bezants, as the horse moves, they would dance in the light, and it would create such an effect that would absolutely convince all viewers of the divinity, of the royal divinity of their rulers. And here is the regalia as it would have looked before it went into the ground and suffered a little bit of, time. So I want you to imagine a man or woman, because women were also found with this sort of regalia, processing in this. And again, the shimmering bezants glistening in the light, the ceremonial shoes, which by the way, those would have been worn over other shoes. You didn't just put your bare foot in that. Some people are silly when they think that. Gold is kind of considered a divine metal because it's incorruptible, theoretically. So, it would have been, it was considered, a divine metal. So it wasn't just beautiful, it was considered to have divine properties because in its pure state, it didn't tarnish. And all of these little baubles around the belt are sort of symbolic of the function of the king or queen as being the father of or mother of their country. So those are all represent practical tools that they should be able to use in their function as, the first amongst equals, so to say. Yep. Here's the tomb from the backside, slightly different view. Some arrows actually survived, wood included, which is interesting. Wood doesn't often survive very well, but it did in this tomb. Got the cantles. Basically, I once read a theory that the idea of interring a ruler or an aristocrat with their wealth was actually a way of maintaining the balance of power and the balance of economics so that you couldn't have intergenerational wealth building up and therefore creating this massive gap between rich and poor. It was reflected, the Franks, a lot of the Frankish tribes in Europe had the same practice. So here we have some tiaras, again with the bezants that would just shimmer with every single step. You have your intimate party tiara and your big party tiara. I think I need to get a nice Sheila era crown with all the tiaras. Actually illustrates very clearly the interconnectivity of the ancient world from Sheila to Europe. Because all of the grave goods that were found, most of them do not come from Korea. Most of them come from much further afield. So for instance, here is a replica, I think.
Yeah, this one's a replica.
Yes, replica of the ancient Roman glass, so from Byzantium. Now, granted, the original in the museum looks just like this. Exactly like this.
You could get it from IKEA.
Yeah, but my point is that it was really well preserved. So it's not like they remade it because the original is in bad shape. It's not. So this comes, this one, why is this one here in this section? So it's made of silver, and silver is not from here at all.
It's from the Baekje Kingdom. So it's from here.
Right, but the style, it's similar to the style of the silver. Right, okay. So it's not foreign kingdoms of Baekje, which isn't that impressive, but these glass beads. So apparently these glass beads, this technique is not native to Korea. It came from Southeast Asia. Korea is not Southeast Asia, for those who are a little bit geography challenged. Okay, so here we have the map, right? So there is this mother of pearl ladle, which is over there, which came from Okinawa. They have white jade, which came from Japan. We've got these brassware incendiaries, which come from Goguryeo, which is Manchuria as of today. By Southeast Asia, I mean Malaysia is where those beads came from. And then over here, you can see all the way to the far, we've got glasswares that come from what was then Byzantium. They keep calling it Western Asia. It was Byzantium, and even Rome itself. So interconnected, yes. So yeah, this is that ladle, a reproduction of the ladle, the mother of pearl, well, the shell ladle, which came from Okinawa. And then here, fascinating, we actually have original footage from the excavation of this tomb, which, you know, considering that they were doing this back in the 70s is pretty interesting. Yeah, so over here you can actually see the way that you would cut down through the layers, and you can see the difference in the state of the mounds compared to what we saw as we walked around. This is when people were still walking up on them. You can see the damage that can do. But here, this is a serious damage, but at least it's for a purpose, how they cut back through section by section like a pie. That's what they found. I mean, it sees that first. Here's mud flat. And then out here we have interactive digital displays, which have reproduction videos for a lot of the grave goods step by step, which show you the layers of the tomb and how it went together. This is actually showing how the tomb was built. So you put down a layer of rock, then another layer of mordant. Mordant is the word I'm looking for, packed earth. Build the stone chamber like this. Add filter rocks. Build the chamber, put in the sarcophagus, the outer sarcophagus. And the chest, yep. Now, this is of course theoretical. They're not certain because, as far as I understand, no detailed records survived, but they assume this is how it went. Yeah, sarcophagus goes in, seal it. Of course, they forgot to add the grave goods in. That's a mistake.
Open her up.
Cover that up with rock, with clay. Finish filling it in. And there it is. Oh, and apparently then they put the offering vessels at the top, which is why they always find them. Here, this goldsmith is making the bezants and then he's making the whole crown, attaching the bezants individually by hand. I did a video recording this whole process. If you want to see it, you can check out my channel, my playlist. Okay, well, out we go. Okay. Okay, well, are there any questions? I know we don't have many viewers left. It's okay. Are there any questions? Oof, smell of frying fish is pretty terrible. We'll just walk while we allow any last questions.
Huh?
Yep. Well, we're going to go to our favorite little tea house here in Gyeongju, which is in Gyeocheon Village, which we visited earlier, and going to have some tea, maybe some traditional Korean tea cakes. Ooh, maybe some ice cream. Maybe pet the cutest little calico kitten in the world. She is so sweet. Oh my goodness, she's so sweet. Don't worry, Susan, I promise I will get footage of the cute calico kitten. She is adorbs. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining me for this long walking tour of Gyeongju. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you're watching this as a recording, please do feel free to put any questions in the comments. I promise I will answer them. Otherwise, please remember to hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. And until next time, everyone, may your travels be creative and unexpected. Bye, everyone.
자, 옆쪽입니다, 옆쪽.